The 90s gave us some of the most iconic pop culture moments, but it also gave us some of the strangest trends in history. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 of the most bizarre trends from the 90s. 25. Alien abduction insurance. Yes, this was a real thing. Back in the early 90s, UFO sightings and alien conspiracy theories were everywhere, so insurance companies saw an opportunity, selling alien abduction insurance to serious believers. And believe it or not, people actually bought it. These policies promised a payout if you or, your earthly remains were ever taken by extraterrestrials. Some even offered annual payments for alien-induced trauma. The only catch? You had to prove the abduction, which is pretty difficult when all you got is a blurry Polaroid and a wild story. While actual alien abductions remain unconfirmed, the fact that companies successfully sold these policies proves one thing. The 90s could turn anything into a business, even paranoid sci-fi fears. 24. Tickle Me Elmo Mania. In the 90s, so many toys came in trend, but nothing came closer to Tickle Me Elmo's craze. It was a red, giggling plush toy that laughed uncontrollably when tickled, and for some reason, it made people lose their minds. Every kid wanted one, except for me. Every parent was desperate to find one, except my mom. And every store was completely sold out. When the $30 toy was sold out at stores, some desperate parents turned to resellers to buy them at hefty prices, ranging from $1,000 to $1,200. Some even caused riots outside Walmart, causing major injuries to its employees. Celebrities like Rosie O'Donnell hyped it up on TV, turning it into a must-have Christmas gift. By 1997, nearly 5 million Elmos had found homes, with another million on pre-order. But, like all viral trends, the hysteria faded, and Elmo was left laughing alone in clearance bins. 23. Collect calls was a loophole that was massively exploited. Back in the 90s, cell phones were rare, and long-distance calls could drain your wallet faster than a payphone 8 quarters. That's where collect calls came in. You'd ask the operator to place a call, and if the recipient agreed to foot the bill, you could talk. But here's where things got interesting. People hacked the system by squeezing their entire message into the say your name part. No need to accept the charges when you could just blurt out the news for free. One popular Geico commercial even poked fun at this with We Had a Baby, It's a Boy. This loophole became so popular that phone companies had to step in, tweaking services and warning people in ads. Because we all know nothing lasts forever, especially free calls. I did it another way. I would actually put in a payphone, put the quarter into a payphone, call my friends, hang up, and have them call the payphone back. Get my money back. Spend hours at payphones sometimes. 22. Tamagotchi Funerals. Losing a pet is heartbreaking, but in the 90s, kids were mourning pixelated pets like they were real. Well, in the 90s, a Japanese company launched a handheld digital pet named Tamagotchi. This became one of the biggest toy fads of the late 90s. So, it was basically an egg-shaped digital pet that needed constant care. If you forgot to feed it or give it attention, it died. And for many kids, that was devastating. Everyone had one, including me. But what made this trend truly bizarre? The funerals. Kids held ceremonies, built tiny cemeteries, and mourned their Tamagotchis like they lost an actual pet. Schools even banned them because too many kids were crying in class over their neglected virtual friends. It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, a Tamagotchi's beeping demands were serious business. And if you let yours die, you weren't just careless, you were a monster. Rest in peace, Zippy. I'll never forget you. 21. Napster. Gen Z has Spotify, but us millennials had something even better. Free music with zero consequences. Okay, maybe some consequences. Napster was the first ever peer-to-peer file sharing service that turned the internet into a music lover's goldmine. Back in the late 90s, if you wanted your favorite songs, you had two choices. Drop $16 on a CD or borrow it from Napster. And guess which one people picked? Within a year, the platform exploded, with 80 million users downloading MP3s faster than our dial-up could handle. But here's where things got messy. Record labels weren't amused. Bands like Metallica led the charge against Napster, dragging it into courtroom battles that would define digital music forever. To make things worse, college campuses started banning Napster because students were hogging all the bandwidth just to download that one song they heard on the radio. But despite the lawsuits and shutdown, Napster's legacy still lives on. Because let's be real, Spotify and Apple Music are just a legal version of what Napster started. I'd say the other biggest problem for just the normal person was, God, nothing was labeled right. If it was a comedy song, it got labeled as Weird Al, even if it wasn't his. Everything was labeled incorrectly. 20. Furbies. Everyone wants a home robot now, but back in the 90s, well, we had them. And they were weird. So Furbies were the first American attempt at producing domestic robots. These fluffy, blinking, chattering gremlins took over our homes, selling 40 million units in just a few years. At first, they spoke only Furbish, a strange language. But over time, they'd start speaking English. I mean, cute, right? Not really. Their random outbursts at 3 a.m. freaked people out, and their unpredictable behavior made them feel less like a toy and more like a possessed doll. But here's where it got really weird. Furbies could record voices. This led to paranoia that they were spying on people, and even the NSA banned them from government offices. Because if anyone was eavesdropping on classified conversations, it sure wasn't going to be a blinking furball with bat ears. 19. Big Mouth Billy Bass. Picture this. You're minding your own business at Walmart when, bam, the plastic fish on the wall starts flopping and singing, "Take Me to the River." Welcome to the late 90s. Big Mouth Billy Bass was everywhere. Homes, cubicles, roadside diners. It started as a harmless gag gift, but things got weird. People hacked them to say creepy things, turning Billy into an animatronic nightmare. And if you worked in retail, kids running wild in Walmart would press every single button at once, creating a cacophony of singing fish that probably still haunts former employees. Despite the chaos, Billy Bass made over $100 million in months, inspiring knockoffs like a Christmas version and a talking deer head. Were they funny or terrifying? Well, if you've ever been startled by one in the dark, you already know. 18. Rave Pacifiers. Pacifiers are for babies, right? Not in the 90s. For some reason, fully grown adults thought it was a fashion statement. Rave culture was at its peak with neon clothes, Jinko jeans, and non-stop dancing. But one trend stood out: sucking on baby pacifiers. If you walked into a rave, you'd think you stumbled into a glow-in-the-dark daycare. People had beaded pacifier necklaces, flashing pacifiers, and entire stores selling them as accessories. But there was a reason behind it. MDMA, the rave drug of choice, caused intense jaw clenching, sometimes bad enough to chip teeth. Pacifiers, well, help prevent that. The weird part? Some teens just wore them because they thought they looked cool, completely oblivious to their actual purpose. 17. Y2K Survival Kits. Remember to turn your computers off on December 31st, 1999. Yep, that was a real warning, shared in every newspaper and magazine, and even distributed as flyers. Why? Well, doomsday was coming. So, what was the problem? Well, computers at the time stored years using only 2 digits, so when the clock struck midnight on January 1st, 2000, people feared computers would think it was 1900 instead. The result? Total chaos. Banks crashing, power grids failing, planes falling from the sky. Or so they thought. This panic pushed people into bizarre survivalist preparations. As the year 1999 approached its end, many people purchased Y2K Survival Kits. Entire stores popped up selling these emergency supplies. Some people even moved off the grid, convinced the world was about to turn into Mad Max. And then, nothing happened. Basically, the biggest disaster of Y2K was how much money people wasted preparing for it. 16. Sneakers that needed inflation. Have you ever thought, oh man, my shoes are great, but what if they had an air pump? Well, in 1990, Reebok answered that very question with The Pump, sneakers featuring a built-in air bladder you could manually inflate for a snug fit. Just squeeze a little pump on the tongue and boom, custom comfort. With NBA stars like Dee Brown and Dominique Wilkins rocking them, the pump became a must-have status symbol. But here's where things got weird. First, they were ridiculously expensive. Spending $200 on sneakers in the 90s? That was elite tier spending. And if that wasn't enough, Reebok aired controversial ads. One of them showed 2 bungee jumpers. One wore Nikes and the other had on Reebok pumps. The man in the Nikes slipped out of his sneakers, falling to his implied death. Despite being controversial and receiving backlash from major newspapers, the pump remained trendy in the 90s, generating over $200 million in sales. Still, some found the trend bizarre. I never had them. I never had the cool shoes. I wasn't allowed to have Velcro. I didn't have the glow in the dark, the light up LA gear. I didn't have the pumps. Wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to have Velcro because my mom wanted me to learn to tie my shoes, and I did, but that was her reasoning. If I had Velcro, I probably wouldn't have learned to tie my shoes. That was her train of thought. 15. Bug pops. Imagine licking a popsicle, only to slowly reveal a gummy spider trapped inside like some kind of prehistoric mosquito. That was bug pops. In 1990, Nestle attempted to make eating bugs fun for kids. The thrill of rescuing a gummy bug made snack time feel like an adventure. But not everyone was a fan. Some kids hated the idea of licking their way through layers of ice just to get a chewy, half-frozen bug. The taste and texture combo was questionable. And let's be real, frozen gummy candy is almost inedible, as it becomes almost rock hard and too cold to really taste. Still, for a brief, weird period in the 90s, bug pops were the thing, because apparently nothing was cooler than sucking on a popsicle with a bug trapped inside. 14. Jeans that were banned in schools. If you think today's baggy jeans are extreme, well, allow me to be the one to introduce you to Jinkos, the 90s pants that were basically wearable parachutes. These jeans weren't just loose, they were super shapeless, ultra-wide-legged pants, with some pairs boasting a 50-inch leg opening. At their peak, every skater, raver, and rebellious teen like me wanted a pair. Why? Because the wider the jeans, the cooler you were. They were so wide that kids could literally hide snacks, CD players, or even entire skateboards in them. Schools in LA banned kids from wearing them for this reason. While the customers had mixed feelings about the jeans, it gained massive popularity amongst youngsters and was revived in 2019 when the original founder, Milo Reva, relaunched them on a new website. 13. No Fear. No Fear wasn't just a clothing brand in the 90s. It was a full-blown personality trait. Their shirts had aggressive motivational slogans like, "Second place is the first loser," and "The cost of living is dying." If you wore No Fear, you were either an extreme sports junkie or a 12-year-old trying to look intense at recess. Launched in 1990, the brand exploded among skaters, bikers, and boxers. Basically anyone who wanted to feel like a hardcore competitor. But let's be honest, some of these slogans were over the top. I mean, imagine walking into math class wearing a shirt that says, "Losing is not an option," over a simple division test. Eventually, its core audience grew up, swapped the dramatic shirts for something subtler, and No Fear faded. Like a pep talk that went on for too long. 12. Cigarette vending machines. After World War II, smoking wasn't just common, it was practically expected. Movie stars smoked, doctors smoked, and even cartoon characters smoked. But by the early 90s, getting cigarettes became ridiculously easy. Then there were these cigarette vending machines. No ID? Pfft, no problem. Just find one, drop in some cash, pull the lever, and boom, instant smokes. These machines were everywhere. Bars, gas stations, even some restaurants. The idea seemed cool and futuristic, but there was one major problem. Kids could buy them too. Technically, these machines were supposed to be in adult-only areas, but enforcing that rule? Well, that was about as effective as telling middle schoolers to walk, not run, in the hallways. As regulations tightened and smoking declined, the machines slowly vanished, becoming just another relic of the 90s era of questionable decisions. There was one, if anyone is from Tampa and remembers the Colonnade on El Prado and Bayshore Boulevard, there was a cigarette machine near the bathrooms that I used to play with. I never got anything from it, but it was like right between the bathrooms, and it had Joe Camel. I just liked pulling the levers. It was fun. 11. Frosted tips. Think millennials only had clean haircuts in the 90s? Think again. Back then, you were not considered a cool dude unless you rocked one of these bad boys, and the ladies loved it. Every boy band had at least one teenage sweetheart with hair that had been bleached only at the tips. Whoever invented this trend definitely has a lot of explaining to do. The entire hair had to be cut short and formed into short spikes with hair gel or hairspray. Then the tips were bleached until they became pale blonde and stood out against the wearer's main hair color. This trend died a natural death in the early 2000s when the next batch of cool kids came into town. 10. Pagers. Imagine speed texting on a pager. I mean, weird, right? Well, 90s teens didn't have to imagine. Before SMS became a thing, they texted with pagers. You know, those devices doctors carry around to be alerted in an emergency. Back in the 90s, life was one big emergency, so everyone beeped away on their pagers. But because there was only so much you could type on that small screen, they developed short number codes to shorten their texts, which is rich coming from people who hated texting lingo today. Well, that led to another trend where companies printed funny guidebooks explaining the new lingo to concerned parents. But once these companies began to make bank, SMS became popular and it was bye-bye to the pagers and the lingo. BRB, GTG. OMW. 9. Lisa Frank, everything. Nothing screams 90s nostalgia like a Lisa Frank binder covered in rainbow-colored leopards and glittery unicorns. If you walked into school without at least one Lisa Frank item, were you even a 90s kid? The brand's psychedelic designs turned everyday school supplies into works of art, featuring everything from smiling panda bears to fluorescent jungle scenes. Notebooks, folders, backpacks. If it wasn't blindingly bright, well, it wasn't worth having. But as the 2000s rolled in, kids traded rainbow tigers for more mature designs, and Lisa Frank's empire slowly faded. Still, nostalgia is a powerful thing, and every now and then, the brand makes a comeback. Because honestly, who wouldn't want a neon cheetah staring at them from a pencil case? And for the guys, it was a Trapper Keeper. God, I wanted one. Never had one of those either. Never had the cool Trapper Keeper. I just had regular 3-ring D binders, or non-D, circular or D. Ring or D ring. Both. Mine were solid colors. 8. Surge. In the battle of 90s soda, Surge was the chaotic neon green cousin of Mountain Dew. Brighter, sweeter, and packed with enough caffeine to power a middle school classroom. Launched by Coca-Cola in 1997, it was aggressively marketed to extreme sports-loving teens, complete with skateboarders, BMX riders, and explosions in its commercials. Kids begged their parents for it, convinced it was a key to being cool. But the sugar-fueled dream didn't last. Parents blamed it for hyperactivity, and poor sales eventually led to its discontinuation in the early 2000s. But in 2014, thanks to online petitions, Surge made a limited edition comeback, though soon went back to where all old trends go to rest. I have a Surge story, if you care to hear it. I was at my aunt's house. Hey, Aunt Karen. And it was the middle of the night and I was hungry and I decided, now would be a really good time for like a Coke float. But I didn't have Coke, so I used Surge. I used a Surge float with mint chocolate chip ice cream. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night and I started to cry because I was so tired but couldn't get to sleep. Thanks, Surge caffeine. 7. Magic Eye. At first glance, Magic Eye posters looked like a mess of colors and random patterns. But if you stared long enough, or somehow crossed your eyes just right, a hidden 3D image would supposedly pop out. Allegedly. These optical illusions took over the 90s, filling books, mall kiosks, and even classroom walls. The trick was to let your eyes relax, which often resulted in kids standing frozen in bookstores, looking completely dazed. Those who instantly saw the images were basically the chosen ones, while everyone else squinted at the patterns in frustration. Some swore they never saw a single hidden image, sparking wild theories that the whole thing was just an elaborate prank. Whether you mastered the skill or gave up in defeat, Magic Eye posters remain one of the weirdest yet most unforgettable fads of the 90s. I was bad at it. I could kind of see it. I could see a shape, but sometimes I just couldn't make out what it was. I could make the shape separate from the rest, but I sometimes had a hard time telling what I was actually looking at. I always crossed my eyes. That's how I did it. I crossed my eyes with them. That was my trick. 6. The Rachel haircut took over the world. When Friends dominated the 90s, so did Jennifer Aniston's iconic layered haircut, better known as the Rachel. Every salon had clients requesting it, hoping to achieve that voluminous, bouncy, effortlessly cool look. But here's the thing, it wasn't effortless at all. Maintaining the Rachel required daily blowouts, strategic layering, and more styling products than most people owned. Even Aniston herself hated the cut, calling it impossible to maintain. And unless your hair was thick and wavy, it usually ended up looking more like a choppy DIY experiment than a sleek salon perfect masterpiece. Still, for a while, the Rachel was the only hairstyle that mattered, immortalized in yearbooks, TV commercials, and countless awkward family photos. And if I remember correctly, she hated it so much that's the reason it's only in season 1. I believe once season 2 came around, she didn't want it anymore. So you'll notice if you are watching Friends, her hair changes after season 1. 5. The Rollerblade Craze. Before scooters, hoverboards, or e-bikes, rollerblades ruled the streets. And if you didn't own a pair, were you even trying? Oh, I didn't own a pair. I wasn't trying. Every kid dreamed of gliding effortlessly down the sidewalk, dodging cracks, and looking like a Mighty Ducks extra. Of course, reality was much less graceful. Most first-timers spent more time face-planting than rolling. But that didn't stop the craze. Rollerblade gangs formed in neighborhoods, skate parks embraced inline skaters, and movies like Brink made it seem like the ultimate cool kid activity. But as the 2000s arrived, rollerblades started to lose their street cred. Skateboards and BMX bikes took over, and the once mighty inline skate faded into nostalgia. I had a pogo stick. 4. Nintendo Power Glove. In theory, the Nintendo Power Glove was supposed to revolutionize gaming. In reality, it was a clunky mess. Released in 1989, but heavily marketed in the 90s, this futuristic-looking controller promised motion-controlled gameplay, like something straight out of Tron. The only problem? It barely worked. The controls were wildly inaccurate, and trying to play Super Mario Bros. With it felt like arm wrestling a malfunctioning robot. The glove skyrocketed in popularity after being featured in The Wizard, where it was hyped as a next-level gaming device. But once kids actually got their hands on it, they quickly realized it was unplayable. Today, the Power Glove is a cult collector's item, mostly seen as a symbol of early gaming innovation that failed spectacularly. Did you have one? Let me know. I never did. Never even used one. 3. Pencil grips. For some reason, the 90s decided that holding a pencil normally just wasn't good enough. So there were the pencil grips. Squishy, colorful tubes designed to give your fingers maximum comfort while you scribbled your way through math class. These things came in endless shapes and styles. Soft gel, ribbed, triangular, and even glitter-filled for those who wanted a little extra flair. Some kids collected them like trophies, swapping them at recess like rare currency. While they claimed to improve handwriting and reduce hand cramps, they mostly served as miniature stress balls, a tiny, pointless obsession that somehow made school supplies cool. And honestly, writing just felt more important when your pencil had a neon blue squishy grip. 2. Velcro Wallets. Before kids had credit cards and Apple Pay, they had Velcro Wallets, the loudest, most aggressively functional way to store birthday money. These wallets were mostly cheap nylon, often featuring neon colors, camouflage prints, or brand logos that made you feel cool. The best part? That rip sound they made every time you opened them. Need to grab a $5 bill for the ice cream truck? Rip. Showing off the school ID? Rip. Unfortunately, over time, the Velcro wore out, turning that glorious rip into a sad, lifeless flap. By the time the 2000s rolled around, sleeker, more grown-up options took over. But nothing will ever match that joy of loudly declaring to the world, yes, I do have a $2 bill inside this masterpiece of convenience. The last Velcro wallet I had, I accidentally left at an arcade at a pizza place in Tampa. It was on Henderson, near Lois. Louis? Papa Louis. Papa Louis. I think it was Papa Louis. I'm just bringing back the Tampa nostalgia for anyone from this area. In case you don't realize, I have moved back to Tampa. I am no longer in Gainesville. I have moved from Gainesville and I live in Tampa again. 1. The beer commercial that took over the world. In the late 90s, Budweiser launched the "What's Up" commercial. 4 friends watching the game, having a bud, cut across all cultural barriers and became a phenomenon. The simple, exaggerated greeting caught on everywhere. Schools, homes, and even news anchors were saying it. The phrase went viral before viral was even a thing. What made it concerning was how rapidly kids started adopting the phrase. And some even took it too far by mimicking the drinking behavior seen in the commercial. There was a brief point in time when this probably replaced hello in the US as the most popular way to answer a phone. The commercial won a Clio Award and raked up Budweiser's sales. So, what up? That's a wrap for today. But before you go, here's a little trivia. What odd footwear trend became popular in the 90s thanks to celebrities like the Spice Girls? Was it A, light up sneakers? Aw. B, platform sneakers? C, toe shoes? I love my toe shoes. Or D, moon boots? Never had those either. Man. Anyway, drop your answers in the comments below. Now, there are many mind-blowing bizarre trends that I didn't include, especially those connected to the medical world. Now, while we often think we know the ins and outs of medicine, there are astonishing trends that remain concealed from the public eye. And trust me, you don't want to miss these 25 bizarre medical facts you won't believe. check it out here. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content, and I will catch you next time. Let me know all the 90s trends, or you know what, if you weren't from the 90s, let me know what embarrassing trends you took part of in whatever decade you grew up in. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.